Tonight, the damning final findings from Ontario's Long-Term Care COVID-19 Commission.
All of the signs that were there that were just ignored.
Devastating loss due to numerous shortcomings and years of neglect. In its final report, the Independent Commission finds Ontario had no plan to protect residents in long-term care. Plus,
the borders are broken. We need to fix it.
Premier Ford again calling on the federal government to impose tighter restrictions at land borders, as well as suspend the arrival of international students in a bid to keep virus variants out. And
we got access to a unit. We ran the food bank in that unit for 6 weeks.
The group of tenants in Parkdale that started a food bank in their apartment complex to help out neighbors in need. Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. Ontario's long-term care sector was not prepared for a pandemic and had no plan to protect residents. Those findings coming from Ontario's Long-Term Care COVID-19 Commission, who released their final report tonight. The Independent Commission was tasked with looking at how and why the pandemic led to so many deaths in nursing homes. Ellen Morrow has more on their findings and what they are recommending.
The report chronicles the failures that led to a scale of loss that's still hard to fathom. The virus's deadly spread, fueled by shortcomings known for decades, exacerbated, the report says, by decisions from the Ontario government.
All of the signs that were there that were just ignored.
Raquel John Matazuwiski's father is in long-term care. Even before its release, she knew the report would be traumatizing.
Actually, it feels like another slap in the face. It feels like additional insult to injury to just, have all this, political theater, and then we're still hurting.
The findings are no surprise, detailing a system unprepared for a pandemic, chronically understaffed with poor infection prevention. Made worse by a pre-pandemic decision from the Ontario government to cancel comprehensive inspections. During the pandemic, the report says officials were slow to act. The Commission made 85 recommendations, calling on the government to urgently increase and improve staffing and step up enforcement for homes that break the rules. It also says the province should rethink how some for-profit care homes operate. The pandemic led to more deaths in those facilities. The government has promised more direct care for residents, but the Commission says it's not acting fast enough, warning residents remain at risk.
It's been extremely hard on my family, and most importantly, it's been extremely hard on my dad.
Do you have any faith or confidence there will be change after everything that's happened?
I have no faith. Now I'm supposed to expect that this is now all news to the government, and we're going to do something. I don't have any confidence in it all.
Still, families hope for change, so all this loss won't have been in vain. Ellen Morrow, CBC News, Toronto.
Premier Doug Ford is once again calling on the federal government to get tougher on keeping virus variants out of the country. He's asking Ottawa to make those coming across land borders to do a mandatory quarantine. But some experts are saying tonight the Premier's focus on borders and airports is misplaced. Lorenda Redekop has more.
If I had the power, I would close down Pearson Airport immediately.
Premier Doug Ford said he'd also shut down land border crossings, except to those absolutely essential. He repeatedly mentioned that more needs to be done to stop variants from entering the country.
The borders are broken. We need to fix it, and I'm willing to work with the federal government.
But the first variant case in Ontario was identified months ago. Some doctors say it's primarily essential workers and their families being infected and ending up in ICU. Ford again blamed international travel.
The variants within the workplace, Cynthia, are coming from the borders, our porous borders.
Dr. Michael Warner, an outspoken ICU physician, says he's yet to treat a patient who acquired their infection while outside the country. But one Toronto emergency physician says it's a different story in the ER.
Traveler will come, they'll leave hotel quarantine after 1 day, after one test, and then they'll test positive at day 9 or 10. And they'll infect their whole families.
The Prime Minister says more than 95% of international travel has already stopped, with negative test results required to enter, and seemed to throw this back to the Ontario government.
We watched the Atlantic provinces severely limit domestic travel with very strong measures. We watched the Arctic territories doing the same thing to extreme success. And they didn't require the support or the intervention or the permission of the federal government to do it.
So neither of what the federal government's doing now or what the premier is suggesting will work. What we do need is a 14-day quarantine. The Indian variant may only show up in many cases up till day 12.
Apart from extending hotel stays, Dr. Brazada wants more rapid testing, since most people crossing by land are essential workers and don't have to quarantine. The Prime Minister says Premier Ford also asked him to suspend the arrival of international students. Trudeau says with no other province asking for that, his government will work directly with Ontario. Lorinda Redicomp, CBC News, Toronto.
Toronto Police's enforcement team has laid more than 200 charges this week, focusing on large indoor events being held at short-term rentals, bars, and restaurants. Toronto Police laid 230 charges under the Emergency Management and Civil Protection. Officers from 16 teams attended 315 incidents since last Thursday. That includes 105 calls for gatherings since Monday. While Toronto's downtown area continues to generate the most calls, officers are responding to reports from across the city. Police are reminding everyone to stay home and stay safe. Mississauga opened its first vaccine pop-up clinic today at the Islamic Community Centre of Ontario, and the clinic has made sure to accommodate for its community.
We have blocked off an area where only female health workers and women can enter and feel comfortable to be able to take off, whether jacket or kind of be able to show their shoulders so that they can feel comfortable to be vaccinated. And there's no hesitancy in them being able to book their appointments and feel that they may not be able to get vaccinated to meet their cultural or religious needs. So we wanted to eliminate that barrier.
It's by appointment only and is available to those who are 18 and over in hotspot neighborhoods. In 2 hours, the site managed to book 7,000 vaccinations. In addition to this pop-up, the Brampton Islamic Centre will also be providing vaccines for residents in Peel. Together, these clinics will deliver 14,000 doses of vaccine. Now, if you didn't get a spot, keep an eye out. Additional pop-up clinics will open in Peel throughout the month of May. Well, if you went outside today, you know it was gusty as high winds swept across the GTA, leading to downed power lines and trees like this one on Gerrard near Victoria Park. Thousands of people were without power tonight. Toronto Hydro responding to multiple outages. Let's go to Colette Kennedy now with a first look at your forecast. And Colette, I was outside this afternoon, very windy, stepped out again this evening, a little bit better.
Thanks, Kelda. Yeah, boy, we made it. Finally seeing those winds beginning to ease up and calm down a little bit from the northwest. But as they do and our skies are clearing, we get into the next situation, which is the development of frost. So, yeah, you can see the clearing conditions and some of that. Yeah, there's some wet snow in there well off towards the east. So tomorrow morning, clouds will start to funnel back in here, but through the overnight hours, especially away from the lakeshore. But the frost advisories in place for the city as well here. We are looking at that chance of seeing that development. Then increasing cloudiness late day Saturday, the chance for some scattered showers. Into Sunday, it's going to be kind of a mix. You see that the main system or rainfall will stay southwest of the GTA, but we're not through yet. This is halfway through Sunday, latter part of the day. Much better chance we'll see some showers rolling on through as well, and milder on Sunday too. Tonight, not mild, 1 degree with the frost advisory. Tomorrow afternoon, 13 with the winds picking up from the south. I said it would be milder on Sunday, Kelda. I'll get into the exact numbers coming up.
All right, thanks so much, Colette. 2 people have been charged in connection with a shooting in Ajax this week. It happened Wednesday at the intersection of Harwood and Kingston Road, leaving 2 people in hospital with serious injuries. Durham police say they've arrested a man and woman in connection with the incident. The male suspect allegedly assaulted a police officer during the arrest and tried to flee but was caught. The 2 are now facing a number of charges. A Winnipeg man has been found guilty of criminal negligence causing death and bodily harm in a 2016 crash that left 4 people dead. The chain reaction crash happened on Highway 400 near Finch in June of 2016. A total of 11 vehicles were involved. The victims included a 27-year-old woman. Also killed were a 5-year-old girl along with her mother and grandmother, who were on their way home from Canada's Wonderland at the time. Winnipeg truck driver Sharbjeet Singh Matharu failed to slow down in the construction zone where the crash happened. Court heard that Matharu had been driving for 26 hours before the crash and had also been talking on his cell phone. He is expected to be sentenced in June. Well, now to a CBC News exclusive. Toronto Public Health confirms to CBC Toronto it is investigating a quarantine hotel near Pearson Airport. The health unit says it became aware of COVID-19 cases linked to the workplace after an employee at the hotel says he got sick at work. Our Chris Glover reports.
49-year-old Chan Ganga tested positive for COVID-19 yesterday.
Okay, I'm really going down on the strength now.
Yeah.
Losing your appetite, did not feel happy eating, but you're hungry. So your body started to feel weakness now.
He's a maintenance worker at one of the quarantine hotels by Pearson Airport and thinks he caught the coronavirus while working. The federal government's so-called quarantine hotels are where international air travelers are required to self-isolate for 3 days awaiting test results. Ganga says several other employees at the Crowne Plaza Toronto Airport Hotel also recently tested positive.
So many outbreaks going on, but everything being kept it very secretly, quietly. They don't even advise or send home the same people that work in the same shift.
Ganga also says physical distancing rules are not being enforced among staff at the hotel.
It got very scary there, very threatening, because nobody really honest, management not really honest enough to highlight those areas where the problems are.
The union that represents employees at the hotel says they've received similar complaints this week from 5 other members. CBC Toronto called and emailed the Crowne Plaza but did not receive a response. Toronto Public Health says it is aware of cases linked to the workplace but won't say how many. In a statement, a spokesperson said we have assigned staff to initiate an investigation and to work with the facility to identify all cases and review and advise on all appropriate public health measures. TPH says since it just started its investigation, it has not ordered a full or partial closure of the workplace yet. But if it finds 5 or more cases within 2 weeks, it has the authority to do so. The Public Health Agency of Canada didn't respond to CBC as to what would happen with the international travelers quarantining there as guests.
Great lessons for those, the management or the owner who running this, because you can't do this. You have to look after your employees first, how they're suffering through this.
Ganga hopes coming forward will spur others to expose health and safety gaps in their workplaces too. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, we know many more people have had to rely on food banks since the start of the pandemic. Well, in Parkdale, a group of residents at an apartment complex saw the struggles many of their neighbors were having and decided to do something, launching a food bank of their own, run from right where they live. Our Dahlia Ashry has the story.
It started last fall. Seeing the need in their community, a group of tenants from an apartment complex in Parkdale got together and started distributing food to those in need in the complex.
In the winter, we decided it wasn't feasible to do it outside anymore.
That's when Patterson Hodgson decided to formally launch West Lodge Tenant-Run Food Bank, a food bank by tenants for tenants.
We got access to a unit and we moved the food bank in there. We ran the food bank in that unit for 6 weeks.
It was one of 200 vacant units, the food bank operating without the knowledge of the property manager. When Hazelview Properties got wind of what was happening, they actually offered a unit for the food bank to use for free. Every 2 weeks, food, sanitizer, and masks are distributed to about 60 households. Because of the pandemic, other food banks in the city say they've seen an increase in the people relying on their services. Last spring, the Daily Bread Food Bank saw 60,000 clients. This year,
that number skyrocketed to 123,000 this past month. So it's more than doubled.
Organizers are asking for rent relief so tenants don't have to rely on their food bank. But the property management says they started a rent relief program late last year. But the food bank says that's not true.
We launched what was called a rent support program, where we have been working on a case-by-case basis with residents who we've encouraged to come forward and let us know if they're struggling to make their rent.
As long as they don't talk about rent relief with us, it's not a fair conversation. They're not helping us.
Organizers say they will continue to run the food bank as long as there's a need, but hopes for open discussions with Hazelview Properties about rent relief. Dahlia Ashery, CBC News, Toronto.
Coming up, Blue Jays legend Roberto Alomar has been terminated by Major League Baseball after an investigation into an allegation of sexual misconduct. We'll have that story after the break.
Outside the locker room. There's a deep drive to center. He's gone deep again. High off the backdrop in center.
The Blue Jays taking on the Atlanta Braves tonight. After 2 scoreless innings, the Jays definitely found their rhythm, scoring at least 2 runs per inning for the next 5. The Braves would push for a comeback, scoring 5 runs late in the game, but this one wasn't even close. The Jays win 13-5. They'll face the Braves for Game 2 tomorrow night. The Blue Jays and Major League Baseball have cut ties with former second baseman and Hall of Famer Roberto Alomar. This after an investigation into sexual misconduct allegations against him. Our Greg Ross has the details.
Many consider him to be the greatest second baseman to ever play the game of baseball. He was an integral piece of the Blue Jays World Series teams in the early 1990s and the first Blue Jay inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. But all of Roberto Alomar's accomplishments will be tarnished by these latest accusations. The Commissioner of Major League Baseball, Robert Manfred, says his office asked for an independent investigation into an allegation of sexual misconduct against the former Blue Jay. According to a statement from Manfred, the allegation was made by a baseball industry employee earlier this year, and the complaint stems from an incident that happened in 2014. Manfred went on to say, "I have concluded that Mr. Alomar violated MLB's policies and that termination of his consultant contract and placement on MLB's ineligible list are warranted. We are grateful for the courage of the individual who came forward." Shortly after that announcement, the Blue Jays sent out their own press release saying that they too were cutting ties with Alomar, who had also been working as a consultant for them. The Jays also said that Alomar's name would be removed from the level of excellence at the Rogers Center and his Hall of Fame banner taken down. Blue Jays president Mark Shapiro said in a statement, "The Toronto Blue Jays believe in creating a safe, inclusive, and empathetic environment where everyone involved in our game is respected." At this point, no information about the allegations has been released by either the league or the Blue Jays. Alomar released a statement of his own on Twitter saying, "I'm disappointed, surprised, and upset with today's news. With the current social climate, I understand why Major League Baseball has taken the position they have. My hope is that this allegation can be heard in a venue that will allow me to address the accusation directly." Alomar was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 2011. The Hall of Fame released a statement today saying they will not be removing his plaque there, saying that at the time he was inducted, he was an eligible candidate in good standing and that his plaque represents his accomplishments in the game. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
The golf course that defied lockdown orders and opened last weekend is now facing charges and continuing to book tee times. We told you earlier this week about the golf course, the Bridges in Tillsonburg, not far from London. OPP have now charged the course with failing to comply with the Reopening Ontario Act. It faces a fine of up to $10 million if convicted. An employee told CBC News today they weren't aware of the fine and that tee times are still being booked. Representatives of the golf course have been asked to appear in court in June. Well, it's partly cloudy tonight, becoming clear overnight with dipping temperatures. Currently, though, it's about 7 degrees downtown. Let's go back to Colette now with a look at your extended weekend forecast. And Colette, the winds finally calming down a bit this evening, but here comes the frost.
Thanks, Kelda. Yeah, you know, we get to lose the special weather statement because the winds calm down, but then we don't have the mixing of the air, and we also have clearing skies, so we get into our frost advisory. So this is in place for much of southern and eastern Ontario, and you do need to really watch this around the GTA, anywhere that you could still bring those plants back in because of the cool temperatures near freezing tonight. Now, for tomorrow, some sun early, then more clouds, and a late day shower risk. That moves in, and Sunday, the temperature is a little milder once again as they go above seasonal. Kind of a one-day only event. We're trending on the cool side, aren't we? Well, the story's right here with the daytime highs from today. Toronto at 9, Peterborough 9, Barrie at 7. We had some wet flurries into some of the higher elevations here back northwest of Toronto. A little bit milder there into Windsor with that daytime high of 14 degrees. So the clear conditions through the overnight. Now this is a snapshot at 7 a.m. Begin to see some of that cloud cover coming back in, so that increase in cloudiness. At 3 o'clock, we're still looking dry for the lower Great Lakes, but it doesn't take long. We'll see some scattered showers developing and pushing through. So that risk is there more so late afternoon into the evening hours. And then even looking ahead at Sunday, we'll see maybe the start to the day on the drier side, and then more widespread shower activity coming in into the afternoon and evening hours. And you see how that will begin to try and spread towards southwestern Ontario too. Speaking of which, let's look at your temperatures overnight tonight. -1 for London, elsewhere right down to freezing with that frost advisory. Tomorrow afternoon, looking pretty pleasant. Some upper teens here for Windsor, 17 degrees, but just keep in mind those winds picking up from the south and those clouds will be building. Tonight, around the Golden Horseshoe, look at those numbers, yeah, as we're heading into the beginning of May, right? And tomorrow afternoon, trending a little on the cool side. I said I'd show you, though, when we would see the numbers picking up even for the Golden Horseshoe, and that's Sunday, at least 16, depending on the timing there with more sunshine. We could see that jumping a little warmer than that. And yes, you do see this pattern as we go into May. Next week, we are talking about May showers as we have unstable air in place, and that chance of showers well into next week, Elda.
Okay, thanks, Colette.
The weather is brought to you by Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. We test, so it runs. It's hard to stop a train.
There won't be any tiptoeing through the tulips at one of the largest parks in the Netherlands this year. Now, normally there would be up to 40,000 visitors a day at this flower garden, which stretches over 100 hectares. This is one of Netherlands' most visited tourist attractions, with millions of vibrant blooms to check out. But for the second year in a row, the pandemic is forcing people to take in the colorful display online only. The garden is only open for about 8 weeks a year and normally has about 1.5 million visitors during that time, mostly from abroad. Wow. And that is our show for you tonight and for the week. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you back here on Monday. Have a great weekend, everyone.